Welcome back to Self. I'm assuming it by now. If you're listening to this episode, you probably heard one before this, and you know that I am not doing really well about creating a good tagline for the opening of this recording. What I do is I sit in front of the microphone and I just start talking. I don't edit these, I just go with whatever it is that's flowing through me and bring it to the surface. I just listened to the last episode because I wanted to make sure I didn't say the same thing twice. But it seems that things string together for me in a little bit of an order as I do this. And it's funny to look up and be able to connect the dots of things that are seemingly unconnected as they're happening. Like I wouldn't be able to foreshadow things based on what's happened in past episodes. But looking back from where I'm at now, I can absolutely see how I got to where I'm at now and have this idea of what a trajectory moving forward looks like. So, last episode, I talked about this dream that I had about essentially just because my capacity is so wide and I have this expanded bandwidth to support people, to do things, to manage relationships, and all of that, doesn't mean I have to always keep my hands full in that sense. So, that dream metaphorically for me meant that there was freedom in letting go of some things, or that I can have much more of an impact if my bandwidth and capacity is more so focused on fewer tasks, if you will. So just it's so wild to me, and it shouldn't be because I should expect success, right? That things are happening the way that they are. So last Friday, it was April. Let me see. Today's Sunday, May 2nd. Uh, it was 2 weeks ago. Let me just say that. So 2 weeks ago, when I had therapy, my therapist, we concluded our conversation, and he said I should consider setting a goal. And I've been very resistant to goal setting for the simple fact that as time passes, I kind of just look up and I'm in a more desirable place than I had been before. And there's a number of ways that I can take a look at where I'm at and people in my life and things that I'm doing, work, feelings, all of that, and apply it here. But this was really challenging for me to look at because right now, I would say because I haven't set any goals, that's why I am perhaps as successful as I am. But then on the other hand of that, what if I were to have set goals? Would I be successful, or is setting goals another way that I view as a reflection of my belief that if I get excited about something or if I expect something, then I'm going to be disappointed, right? So, again, with all of this self challenging that I'm doing, I have to directly go against that. So, I sat and I really, really, really did try to come up with goals for myself. Uh, and I couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't. I think therapy was on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and a few days just went by of me really thinking about this. Like, what do I want? What's really worth the pursuit of, and the feeling of success or potentially disappointment, rejection, and everything that comes with that. What's worth it? So that following that Friday night, actually, so a few days later, it was right before I went to bed. I made the statement out loud that I am going to invest more in yoga. I'm going to be the best yoga teacher that I can be. And that's going to be my career option. So the goal that I decided to set for myself was career focus. I had completed a 200-hour teacher training at Yoga Buzz. I'll plug them because they're awesome. Like, just the best people to be with and be involved with there here in St. Louis. If you're interested in attending classes, donating because it's a nonprofit, or if you want to take a teacher training for yourself, I got my 200-hour teacher training through them. And when I woke up after having made this declaration that I am going to be the best yoga teacher I can be, I opened up my Facebook and I was tagged in a post by someone who was looking for male yogis, I would say, because I don't think the qualifications were that you had to be a teacher, but just like into yoga to appreciate the service that was being provided. He was just looking for male models who were into yoga, basically. So it was really cool that my yoga teacher, who had given me my 200-hour teacher training certification, had thought of me and sent that my way. So I reached out to her. I just said thank you, checked in with her to see how things were going. I let her know how teaching has been, and just really making it through the pandemic. And as a new yoga teacher, where on one hand everything's virtual, so that should make it easier as an entrepreneur, because you don't have to find a studio, bring people into a studio, and teach classes at the studio. But at the same time, now everyone can teach yoga online. So that's aside the point here, but these were the kinds of conversations that we were having. And she had mentioned that they're doing a 300-hour yoga teacher training, which was really, 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 really awesome for me. And to take it to the next level, because right now with the 200-hour training, I feel very confident in getting people in and out of poses and going through a flow sequence and just really getting into the physical aspect of yoga, which is just put your body here into shape, and being aware enough to know when things are challenging for people and to offer modifications. I'm confident in the meditation aspect of it, or just kind of guiding people through navigating their thoughts just through speaking in the way that I talk on this podcast, just giving people something to consider as they're on their mat. But I don't feel confident in keeping the original culture and history of yoga. I want that to be in my practice consistently, to where I can say the names of the poses in the Sanskrit language, be able to say, okay, well, when we're here, we want to honor blank, or speak to some of the gods and talk through some of the stories that are tied to yoga, right? I don't feel confident with that. So I was expressing this to her, and she let me know. She said, well, if you're serious and you want to join, we can reopen the application process. Reopen the application process. That is a very important piece of this, all right? So I go through the process. I apply. I answer the questions. I interview, and just to maintain like the anonymity or whatever requirements of the teacher training. I won't go into too much detail, but after it went from Friday, I made the declaration. Saturday, I had the conversation. Sunday, I updated my resume and sent it in. Monday, I filled in the application. Tuesday, I had my interview. Tuesday afternoon, I got the congratulations email. And then the next steps were finances. Now, mind you, I think everyone's impacted by the pandemic. And to some degree, I just happen to be impacted negatively. So I'm used to always having had 3 jobs. And again, this goes back to the octopus thing as well. I've always had 3 jobs until 2020 hit. And then I've just had one. And that is the one that was probably more impacted by the pandemic, because it's personal training, and Peloton had dropped and everyone was getting bikes and doing at-home workouts. So it hit me a lot harder than it should have. or than it would have if there were any of the other jobs I was able to have held on to, because they were in advertising and then a podcast sponsor that I had for something positive for positive people, and then also running a nonprofit and not being able to pay myself because funding opportunities had become limited. Donations died down significantly, and this was all after I've been able to pay myself. And then it's like, oh well, so little money is coming in. All of the money that comes in needs to be allocated to the resources and services that we provide. So Courtney holds off on getting a salary a little bit longer. Now, granted, I've had unemployment assistance, which has really, really helped me out. And I was like, well, I think I could utilize that to some degree here and pay for investing more into my yoga teacher training. So there's a scholarship as well, or there are scholarships. They're just not full ones. So they asked me, how much you'd need and what my situation was. So I explained what my situation was, and I wouldn't, again, not going into too much detail, like I was able to afford my yoga teacher training after having received a scholarship. And it's just amazing to me that between the declaration on Friday to Tuesday, this happened. And I tried so hard not to say to myself, this is really weird. This is happening. This synchronicity is occurring. It's weird. It's weird. It's not weird. It's expected. I made the declaration. I manifested, right? And manufacturing the manifestation just looked like putting it into practice. And as I walk forward, because of all of the approval, the validation that's occurring along the way, I expect success now. I expect to succeed in my journey of being the best yoga instructor that I can be, simply because of this experience that happened. You can't tell me that after the synchronicity that occurred this way, I'm not supposed to be exactly where I'm at. I'm not supposed to be doing exactly what it is that I'm doing. Can't tell me that. So it starts next week. Actually, it'll start the weekend of May 8th, 2021. And looking at this particular situation and tying it into previous synchronicities that I may not have even given too much thought to, it really makes me wonder how my life would be had it not been for the pandemic that's we're in right now in 2021. So let me just say all of that. I don't know how long this podcast is going to be up on the internet or how long people are going to listen to it. So I want to make sure to name the dates and that this is the COVID-19 pandemic in case there's one that hits in another year. But again, I had 3 jobs. I've always had 3 jobs since leaving my corporate job, if you want to call it corporate. I left the office space, let's call it that. But I've always been self-employed, done freelance advertising work, and COVID took that away from me. So relating that to the dream I had about the octopus, 2 of my hands freed up, and then more focus became on my fitness, personal training. So it was, while I have 1 arm on there, I have 2 more arms free to intermingle with that, so I can be better at what I'm doing with personal training. That means more involved with the social media, the marketing, the behind the scenes stuff, rather than just showing up and training people and then going on about my day and getting to my other jobs. So there's a greater depth there because I have more arms, more bandwidth that I'm going to fill in with personal training. That includes so much more than just telling people what to do. And then being able to incorporate yoga into that as well. Again, it's just expanding the capacity. It's filling in the capacity that I have. So that yoga, my yoga teacher training had gone into this as well. And I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not had my arms freed up, my bandwidth freed up from the freelance jobs, the advertising jobs, the podcast advertiser that I had, and not having to fulfill all the obligations there. So a lot of letting go had to happen. And in 2020, yoga teacher training had gone virtual for me to get my 200 hour. And I had all this time because we were in lockdown. We were in there were 90 days where we couldn't do things. Everything was closed. And so I was only able to focus on my Something Positive for Positive People nonprofit organization. I was only able to do my yoga teacher training. I was able to read all of those books and read them, except one. I am struggling to finish Goddess Pose. It is so hard for me to finish through. I don't got to go into that. But yeah, it's hard for me to read physical hard copy books as it is because I'm always doing things. But again, this is another just metaphor of perhaps I will get more out of fewer things if I am putting more focus into it rather than spreading myself so thin, focusing on so many different things. So I look at what had to occur for me to get to this point, and it's all connected. It's almost like if you ask yourself, if you manifested COVID for yourself, if you manifested this, like, why would you? Why would this have happened for you? I don't know if anyone else has said this, but I have a quote that I'm the only person I know who said it. Life is not about what happens to you. It's about what happens through you. And a lot's been able to happen through me because of this pandemic. I was able to get a therapist at no cost, at least for the first 3 months. And that was really useful for me. I was able to walk away from or cut ties from jobs that I otherwise wouldn't have. I wouldn't have left because I was comfortable. It was nice to have that consistent income that supported my survival needs. Had it not been for this pandemic, I wouldn't have gotten to the point of being able to pay for other people's therapy because, while that's something that I want for people, I didn't have it myself until 2020 hit. And now I'm able to use my own experience to say, hey, here's how therapy is useful. Here's how it helps. And it's not about what you think it's about. It's going to be about the things that come up as a result of what you think you're there for. So I can speak to that more positively. And I think the most important thing of all of this has been the self-reflection that's come, the self-trust, the self-challenging. All of this, I'm not trying to be punny here at all, but there was just a lot of self-involvement, self-reflection that hadn't been there before, self-questioning, self-exploration, self-discovery. And I realized how much self-repression I had been experiencing over the 32 years of my life, I would say. Because even as a youth, it wasn't okay for me to express myself in a way that made other people uncomfortable, whether it be my mom or granddad. It wasn't encouraged that I ask questions. I was just supposed to be obedient and stay in a child's place. So here I am now as a grown-ass man, and you can't get me to shut up. Throughout the pandemic, I have grown to challenge myself. I have grown to trust myself. And each one of these podcast episodes to date has been a story of what's happened to me throughout this pandemic that gave me things that I didn't even know I needed. I don't know how I'd have been navigating life had it not been for this. I would have probably just continued to do a whole lot of things, getting nothing done or making progress in nothing. But if nothing else, this definitely pushed me into the realm of deciding at 32 years old what my career is, what I'm going to allow for my career to be. Because all this time, I've been doing a lot of different things. And while some things nourish my soul, they don't pay. While some things pay, they don't nourish my soul. This is, to me, a way of integrating being able to support myself financially, as well as being able to do something meaningful to the world. Because the whole yoga thing is not just something that takes place on the mat. It's going to take place as I go off the mat, as I walk the world and navigate the communities that I serve, as I represent the multiple levels and aspects of my identities. That's where I'm taking my yoga practice into. So by deepening it and developing a more confident understanding of the history of it, its origins, its roots, this will allow for me to more truly show up in the world and invite others to have their own moments of self-reflection, self-exploration, discovery, and hopefully expression for themselves too. This is really an amazing time to be able to do that, because I've always been uncomfortable being by myself. I've always had to have people around, or some kind of, I wouldn't have called it a distraction at that point in time. I just wanted company. I wanted companionship. And here I am now, even just challenging habitual patterns to date that I've noticed have been there since adolescence, since I was a teenager. Like, just to look at how I view sex now. Sex isn't my only vehicle of emotional connection. Sex is a way to connect, but it's not the way to connect for me anymore. And this is all stuff that I would not have been able to have this self-reflection at all had it not been for this pandemic coming in and just freeing up my capacity, freeing up my hands, or challenging me to expand my capacity even. So I had to do all of these things in hopes to make money, but I had to let go of a lot of stuff. I had to sell my car. I had to move in a place that I could afford more, that made more sense. I had to let jobs go. I had to find new ways of making money, and I'm still am. Yeah, the unemployment assistance helps, but can't nobody live off of this. Like, I've definitely learned to do a lot more with a lot less, but I can't live off of this. I can't do this. It ain't working for me. And it's definitely been a major setback, but I view this kind of a setback as like a slingshot. So it's not setting me back in a sense that I'm going backwards, rolling down a hill, falling or tumbling, but setback for a come up, as in like I'm slingshotting. I'm being pulled in this slingshot so that when it's time, when that release comes, I'm going to fling so much further than I would have had I just consistently gone in the same direction that I had been going into. And that to me is powerful. That's some powerful stuff right there. Like, I believe that. I believe that in my bones. I trust that. And the reason that I trust that is because of how over time the trust that I have been experiencing in myself has been super, super useful. I've been challenged to trust myself. I am trusting myself. And that's just, when you start to, you see the stars align. It's not really about stars aligning, but you align, you realign. You may waver a little bit one way and then go back the other way, but you always tend to find yourself more so in alignment when you live in the truth of your identities. Who are you? Are you living up to that? Do you live up to that? Keep doing that. And ask yourself, it's a rough question. I've lost a family member to COVID-19. And I had to go to that funeral, and, I saw my family, friends of family, and just how that impacted everyone. Um, so for me to say, what if I manifested this, and then be able to look at objectively what happened, it's a little bit challenging. It's a little bit challenging to do that. It's uncomfortable, but I'm doing so not for the sake of looking at the bright side, but for the sake of collecting the data here. My uncle, who, and this is the worst part, he said to me, he told my mom, he was like, let Courtney know to call me. Like, I want to talk to him about something. And it infuriates me that he passed away before we could have whatever that conversation was. And I wouldn't say that that's like something that really affects me on the surface, but when I think about it, it's like, damn, what did he have to say? Because at the funeral, I feel like I got to know him a lot better than I had throughout the time that he was living. And this happened August 2020, so I'm past the point of really grieving or processing this. So yeah, I got to see that he was a photographer. He had celebrity connections. He was in the military. He had all of this. He was a family man. I didn't even know that he had adopted one of his children's friends. I didn't know all of this stuff about him. So as I sit here and I think and I say out loud, what if I manifested COVID? And if anyone's listening to this who has lost someone or who has experienced a tremendous loss to their identities or their lifestyles, I'm right there with you. I'm there with you. So I only share this to acknowledge, the polarity here, the other end of the spectrum. Because on one hand, it's like, okay, I can look back and I can see objectively these are the things that happened and it worked in my favor. But I acknowledge that that wasn't the case for everyone. A lot of people didn't make it. A lot of people won't make it. And while it looks like, because the vaccine's released, at least here in the U.S., and it's getting warmer outside and people are just getting tired. People are getting tired. And it looks like things are going back to normal. But they're not. There's still some transition phases that need to occur out there. So there's transitions that have to occur in here. And when I say in here, I just mean inside ourselves. So there's still stuff to be done. Like I said, I took this and I'm processing all of it. If I were to have manifested this, it would have been for me to connect with my identity. The whole purpose was to connect to me and not latch on to what other people pump into my ears, what other media pump into my face. This was about finding myself. And then finding myself, I find myself to have connected with so many different things that I don't know that I would have otherwise, because I'd have had to have been so focused on things like having my survival needs met, moving forward in a way that, I don't know how I want to say this, moving forward very unconsciously. It's like this pandemic knocked the unconscious behavior patterns off of the metaphorical hamster wheel. It just brought it to a halt, and I was like, I'm trying to move on it and I just can't. So you get off and you start to look at the wheel and you're like, hold on, I haven't been going anywhere. This is a wheel? You telling me I've been running in place this whole time, aging, getting tired, fatiguing. I only take, I basically get up, I eat, sleep, use the bathroom, drink water, and then get back on this hamster wheel every day? For what? And when you start to see that, you see the hamster wheel for what it is, and it's just like a big cycle. It's that's it. It's a cycle, and there's so much more to it, because once you can examine the hamster wheel after getting off of it objectively, you start to look around, and then you notice that you're in a cage in a house or a facility, in a house that's on a street that's in a neighborhood that's in a county or city or municipality, and you keep zooming out, and you ultimately realize that you're in a city, a state, a country, a continent, the planet, a galaxy, the quadrant of the infiniteness of the universe. Like, we, in the grand scheme of things, this ain't nothing. Where we are, we're a speck of dust on the spectrum of what we give time. Time has been completely removed from the equation with COVID. I used to look forward to hump day, Wednesdays. I used to look forward to Thursday happy hour right before Friday, leaving work early on Fridays, not having to go to work on Saturday or Sunday, dreading getting up on Monday. But every day kind of became the same for me in COVID. There was no Monday or Friday or Saturday. It's just been days. Like, I go to sleep and I wake up. And in that pattern where, you try to connect with people, but the screen stuff is draining. It's way more draining than being around humans. And as someone who's historically been an extrovert, getting my charge from being around other humans, it changed for me. And like, granted, things have opened back up and I've been around people in the workplace, but it hasn't been the same to be around people in social settings or having the opportunities to meet new people and be around new people, because that's where you run the risk of spreading and contracting the virus. So, before I drift off way too much from the overall point of this, has just been listening to, I had a friend, he told me, he was like, do you listen to your own podcast? He wasn't talking about this one. He was talking about a different one. There's Something Positive for Positive People podcast. And I didn't know what he meant at the time, but when he said that, it did stick with me. And I look up now and I go back to from episode 1, expectation setting. And I look through the realizations that I had and the growth points that occurred. These are just the ones that I was able to name. I can't count how many others there have been. So in essence, like, I have practiced what I've preached. I came to him for advice and he was like, do you not listen to your own podcast? Like, what you need to do it. And here I am putting it into practice, and I want to share that with whoever it is that's listening to this one right now. Where you are right now is where you're supposed to be. If you are willing and able to navigate the challenges of examining what COVID-19 represents for you, had you manifested this, what did you get out of it? What are you getting out of it? What are some things that you have learned about yourself? What kind of reflection have you done? Or have you been avoiding? Have you been using this as an opportunity of avoiding connecting to yourself? Have you used this as an opportunity to connect with yourself? It was hard for me in the beginning. I bought 3/5 of alcohol, and they were gone in a week. And when I saw that happen, I was like, yeah, I can't do that no more. I made that decision, and I don't drink near as much as I did pre-pandemic. Now that I think about it, like, I might have some vodka at home, but that's from like an occasion from a weekend where there was like a get together, and I just ended up left with it. So outside of that, I mean, I don't drink to get drunk anymore. If I find myself tipsy, I'm in a real good place and I just want to talk. I want to socialize. But a lot of evolution has occurred for me throughout this process. And just in sharing the story of yoga, making the declaration of the manifestation, and then putting that into practice, looking like manufacturing, like I gotta expect success. And I hope that whatever this formula that's coming together right now on this podcast, I hope that this is something that resonates with people to the point where they feel compelled to take some sort of action for themselves. So if you're someone who's listening to this and any of this is resonating with you, get off here and write it down. What if you manifested COVID? Did you do what you were supposed to do? Are you stalling? Are you avoiding? What can be done? Do you feel like it's too late? Because in my mind, it ain't too late. It ain't too late to figure that out. As long as we wearing masks and as long as things are not normal, is not the word. There's always going to be some reflection that can occur. And as I just mindfully move through the manufacturing process of the manifestation here, that's something to remember. Mindfully move through the manufacturing of the manifestation here. Dang, that's tight and a mouthful. But as I continue to do that, I do so with a much more conscious focus of what's happening. And I might overanalyze, I might overthink, but I'm definitely over-intuiting now. So over-intuiting, overthinking should definitely be the name of this podcast. the title here, Over-intuit, don't overthink. Ooh. I was going to call this Manifesting COVID. No, it'll probably get blocked off the internet, so I probably shouldn't do that. So yeah, that's really what I wanted to share here and put out. Is just I decided to set a goal, and just like that, overnight it went into practice. And going back to expecting success, when you make a declaration and you're doing already what you're supposed to be doing in order to make that declaration come to existence, you can't fail. That's success. That's the expectation of success. So as I figure out, what perhaps mindful movement is going to be what it's called, I'm going to go ahead and get my LLC, and I'm going to begin posting yoga videos and meditation videos because I have the time to do so, and I have the freedom to do so. And my income isn't negatively impacted by me giving away free stuff right now because I'm partially working and able to receive unemployment benefits. So perhaps this is what I need in order to kickstart myself into being able to support myself as a yoga practitioner, entrepreneur. And I'm still able to continue to learn and grow and develop in my own yoga practice. So that's what I feel like. Perhaps this was the whole manifestation process for me. Maybe it's still ongoing because I haven't figured out what I'm supposed to be doing or where I'm supposed to be at right now. So it's important that now that I've had this realization, for me to act on it, because maybe I'm the one responsible for putting this pandemic to an end. Maybe I'm perpetuating it and enabling it because my manifestation power are so awesome. And if everybody thought this way, or if everybody just knew that about themselves, like how powerful we are in our belief systems, then perhaps this shift would occur to where this would be over. So I'm going to take it upon myself to act as if my belief about God and the universe are true, and that we collectively are this one force living on different planes of reality at a time. And the one who realizes that is well, everybody realizes it, but in your world, your thoughts, your beliefs, your actions really do impact the consciousness of everyone else in this ecosystem of representations of God, right? So I'm gonna try and end this pandemic by doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which is overthinking. Ooh, look at that. Because overthinking to have you stuck. Overthinking to have you not taking care of business. It'll have you, you know what overthinking does for you. But when you over-intuit, can you even over-intuit? Over-intuit is go get stuff done. The things that are supposed to be done, that fit, that are supposed to be in alignment. And so the second I got lined up with where I was supposed to be, bam. When I said my career, yoga practitioner, yoga teacher, whatever, bam, stars start just lining up. Everything starts lining up for the process of me taking what was in my dream and bringing that into the world. So going from manifesting to manufacturing, all these episode titles tie into where I'm at right now. So consider that. Consider, your actions being what's necessary in order to end this pandemic. Not your actions in the sense of just social distancing, wearing masks, getting vaccinated, but in a sense of your spiritual precautions, your consciousness precautions. Like, not even precautions, that's not a good word. I want to act like you didn't hear that because I'm not editing this out. I'm not perfect, I'm human. Consider, ending your lesson, learning your lesson as the thing that will end this pandemic. So if you are able to sit and reflect on what your lesson might be, what you've learned so far, and how to apply it to yourself and elevate your own consciousness for the sake of elevating the consciousness of those around you, not for the sake of, but doing so, and you will offhandedly do that. I'm seeing it firsthand with relationships that I have with people as I grow and develop in my own body, in my own identities. I'm radiating some contagious consciousness stuff, and it's really it's sticking with people. It's hitting hard. It's resonating. So let's do this. Like, let's trust ourselves. Let's look at, all right, well, if I manifested this, here's why I manifested it, so that I can blank, and then do that. Step into it and see what happens for yourself. Trust your intuition. Over-intuit. Don't overthink. Thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Self, the podcast where we explore self-education, self-exploration, self-discovery, and this is my vehicle of self-expression. So if this is something that resonates with you, just put it into practice. At this point, I don't really care about the whole getting reviews and comments and emails and things like that. I just care that, this continues to support me from an accountability perspective, to have the time to self-reflect on things that people may not all agree with, but it's not for everybody. But if you're here and you get something out of it, I just ask that you use it. All right. Thank you.